Picture yourself waking up on a Tuesday morning in late January. The sun is out. The temperature is climbing towards 65 degrees. You crack open a window because somehow in the dead of winter, Chicago feels like spring. Kids are outside without jackets. People are walking around in short sleeves. It is January 24th, 1967, and the Windy City is enjoying one of the warmest winter days on record. Nobody could have imagined what was coming. 48 hours later, Chicago would be buried. 23 inches of snow. Wind gusts over 50 miles per hour. Drifts as high as 15 feet in places. 50,000 cars abandoned on streets and expressways. 800 CTA buses frozen in their tracks. The airports closed. The train stopped. The city that had survived the Great Fire of 1871 was now facing something it had never seen before. A blizzard so massive, so sudden, so complete, that it brought the second largest city in America to its knees. If you lived through it, you remember exactly where you were. The chaos, the fear, the cold that crept in and would not leave. But you also remember something else. The way neighbors became family. The way strangers became friends. The way a city that had no choice but to stop somehow found a way to keep going. This is the story of the blizzard of 1967. The storm that froze Chicago solid. It started before dawn on Thursday, January 26th. At 5:02 in the morning, the first flakes began falling. Most people were still asleep. Those who were up, heading to early shifts, probably did not think much of it. Chicago gets snow. That is what January does. But this was different. By the time the sun came up, the snow was falling hard, 1 inch an hour, then 2 inches an hour. The wind picked up, howling off Lake Michigan, driving the snow sideways. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. And still, people went to work. Still, kids went to school. Because the weatherman had said 1 to 2 inches. Nothing Chicago could not handle. The weatherman was wrong. By noon, 8 inches had already fallen, and there was no sign of it letting up. O'Hare Airport, the busiest airport in the world, closed for the first time in its history. Midway shut down right behind it. 10-foot drifts covered the runways. Thousands of travelers found themselves stranded in terminals, watching the snow pile up against the windows, wondering when they would ever get home. Downtown, the Loop was chaos. Office workers stared out windows at a city disappearing under white. Some bosses let people go early, others did not. Either way, getting home was almost impossible. The expressways became parking lots. Cars that had been moving fine 1 minute were suddenly buried the next. The Edens, the Dan Ryan, Lakeshore Drive, all of them choked with vehicles that could not go forward and could not go back. Drivers sat helpless as the snow piled up around their doors, trapping them inside. One woman remembers sitting in her car on the Kennedy Expressway for 5 hours. She watched a man ahead of her get out, try to push his car, and give up. He just walked away into the white, disappearing like a ghost. She never saw him again. On Lakeshore Drive, cars were buried so deep you could not tell where one ended and another began. From above, it looked like a frozen river, white humps stretching as far as the eye could see, each one a vehicle with someone inside wondering what to do next. The CTA tried to keep running. It could not. Buses got stuck on hills they had climbed 1,000 times before. The incline at Devon and Western became a graveyard of buses, each one abandoned after spinning its wheels uselessly against the snow. Passengers who had paid their fare found themselves walking, sometimes for miles, through drifts that came up to their waists. Dozens of passengers spent the night aboard unheated buses. They huddled together for warmth, strangers becoming companions out of necessity. Some buses were not found for days, just white mounds on white streets, invisible until someone dug down and discovered the frozen shell underneath. The trains fared better, but not by much. 12 Illinois Central trains were stopped by snow-covered switches. Passengers stayed overnight in the cars, wrapped in whatever they had, listening to the wind howl outside. A New York Central train from New York City got stranded at the Englewood station. Another derailed just blocks from LaSalle Street. People who normally took the car decided to try the train. They packed into stations, shoulder to shoulder, hoping for something, anything, that could get them home. The Randolph Street station was so crowded you could barely move. Loop workers who usually commuted in peace found themselves crushed against strangers. All of them desperate, all of them afraid. By evening on Thursday, the city was paralyzed, and the snow kept falling. That night was the longest many Chicagoans had ever known. Those stuck in their cars had to make a choice: keep the engine running and risk carbon monoxide poisoning, or turn it off and freeze. Some got out and walked, trusting they could find shelter somewhere. Others stayed, praying someone would find them. Police cars tried to respond to emergencies. They got stuck too. Some squad cars were dispatched to push out other squad cars, only to end up stuck themselves. The officers did what they could. They walked. They carried supplies on their backs. They knocked on doors and offered what help they had. One firehouse sheltered 300 people overnight. Just one firehouse. Across the city, churches opened their doors. Schools that had closed became emergency shelters. Hotels in the Loop filled to capacity with commuters who could not get home, then started turning people away because there was simply no room left. Hospitals faced their own crisis. Doctors and nurses who had come in for their shifts could not leave. Those scheduled to replace them could not get in. Medical staff worked double shifts, triple shifts, whatever it took. Helicopters became the only way to move supplies. Police helicopters, news helicopters, privately leased helicopters, all pressed into service, delivering insulin to diabetics, medicine to the elderly, food to families who had not eaten since morning. And then there were the babies. Pregnant women went into labor that night across the city. Getting to a hospital was nearly impossible. Some were taken by sled, others by snowplow. In Hammond, Indiana, 2 expectant mothers were carried to St. Margaret's Hospital on bulldozers, the massive machines crawling through drifts that nothing else could penetrate. At least a dozen babies were born at home that night, delivered by fathers who had no medical training, by neighbors who had never done anything like it before, by anyone who was there when there was no other option. One woman's water broke on a CTA train stuck at Howard Street. She did not want to give birth on the L. She did not. By some miracle, the train moved just enough to get her to Evanston Hospital in time. Years later, her son would joke that he knocked on his mother's womb and said he thinks he would like to come out now. He was born on newspaper, almost. Almost. By Friday morning, the snow had finally stopped. 23 inches. The most Chicago had ever seen from a single storm. More snow than usually fell in an entire winter, dumped in just 29 hours. The sun came out, the wind died down, and the city stared at what had happened. Streets were gone. You could not see them. Cars were lumps under white. Buses were buried. The expressways looked like tundra. From the air, Chicago resembled something out of a science fiction movie, a great city frozen in time. Everything stopped, everything silent. Now came the digging. Mayor Richard J. Daley ordered city workers to clear streets round the clock. 500 snowplows hit the roads, joined by equipment from Wisconsin, Iowa, and Michigan. 2,000 workers, maybe more, attacked the snow with shovels and salt and sheer determination. But there was nowhere to put it. Usually, plows push snow to the side of the road. There was no side of the road. There were no roads. just walls of white everywhere you looked. The city started hauling snow to the Chicago River and dumping it in. Truckload after truckload, the snow splashed into the dark water below. Some of the snow was put on trains. Refrigerated freight cars, heading south, loaded up with Chicago snow. One train sent snow all the way to Florida. A 13-year-old girl in Fort Myers had written a letter to the railroad. She had never seen snow before, so they sent her some, an entire rail car's worth. By the time it arrived, half of it had melted, but enough remained for the kids in Fort Myers to see what winter really looked like. Meanwhile, in Chicago, people were still digging out their cars. Some could not find them at all. The plows had pushed snow into mountains 10 feet high, burying vehicles completely. People walked through the streets, brushing snow off windshields, peering inside, trying to recognize their own car in a sea of white. Grocery stores were emptied. Milk, bread, cigarettes, all gone within hours of reopening. Delivery trucks could not get through to restock. People walked to stores that might be open, pulling sleds behind them to carry groceries home. There was desperation. And yes, there was darkness. Looters hit some neighborhoods, mostly on the south and west sides. More than 270 people were arrested. In one terrible incident, a 10-year-old girl was killed, caught in crossfire between police and a gang looting a shoe store on Roosevelt Road. She was walking home. She never made it. 26 people died in Chicago from the blizzard. Some died from heart attacks while shoveling snow. Some died from exposure. Some died from accidents that would not have happened if the streets had been clear. Across the metropolitan area, the death toll reached 60. But there was also light. Strangers helped strangers in ways no one expected. People who barely knew their neighbors suddenly knew them very well. Men shoveled together, forming crews that cleared entire blocks. Women brought hot coffee to workers in the street. Kids, let out of school with nowhere to go, built snow forts and made memories that would last a lifetime. One woman walked 5 miles from the West Loop to Humboldt Park. She caught rides from strangers when she could. She said later that people were helping each other. It was wonderful. People were stopping in cars that could get through, and they would take you a certain distance. Back then, you could trust people. You never thought twice about getting in. Groups of 16 people pushed buses together, trying to free passengers who just wanted to get home. Black men helped white motorists dig out of drifts near IIT, even though the city was still tense from the struggles of the civil rights movement. For those few days, race did not matter. Getting through mattered. One family's car was stuck near 33rd and Wentworth. The father and his sons were shoveling when a group of 12 African-American men approached. The family tensed. They did not know what to expect. The men picked up shovels and helped. They got the car out. They shook hands. And then they were gone. Years later, that family still talks about it. They still wonder who those men were. They still want to thank them. By Saturday, the city was starting to move again. Commuter trains ran. Most CTA bus routes operated. The sun was out, the temperature near 30, and Chicago, battered but unbroken, was clawing its way back. O'Hare finally reopened around midnight on Monday. Schools did not reopen until Tuesday. Businesses that had been closed for days slowly unlocked their doors. The streets, still narrow with snow piled high on both sides, buzzed with traffic again. But the snow wasn't done. On February 1st, 4 more inches fell. On February 5th, another storm dumped 8.5 inches. Between January 26th and February 5th, Chicago received 36.5 inches of snow, nearly an entire season's worth in 11 days. The snow on the ground didn't fully melt until March 10th. The final cost was staggering: $150 million in losses. In today's money, over $1 billion. It was the greatest disruption to Chicago's commerce and transportation since the Great Fire nearly a century before. But ask anyone who lived through it, and they won't talk about the money. They'll talk about the snow. The drifts as high as the second floor. The tunnel's kids carved through mountains of white. The neighbors they never spoke to before, suddenly standing in their living room, sharing a pot of coffee and waiting for the world to start moving again. They'll talk about walking down the middle of Lakeshore Drive, seeing nothing but white humps where cars should be. They'll talk about the L train that got stuck and the passengers who played cards for hours while they waited. They'll talk about babies born at home and strangers becoming heroes. And 9 months later, they'll tell you, there was a baby boom. All those couples stuck inside with nothing to do but keep each other warm. October 1967 saw an awful lot of new Chicagoans enter the world. The blizzard of 1967 changed the city, not just for that winter, but forever. Chicago learned from it. Better forecasting, better plowing, winter parking bans on main streets, sensors and cameras to track snow removal in real time. The next big blizzards, in 1979 and 2011, were bad, but they didn't catch people the same way. The lessons of 1967 made sure of that. But what the data and the policies can't capture is what that storm revealed about the people who lived here. When everything stopped, when there was no way forward and no way back, Chicagoans didn't give up. They dug out. They helped each other. They made it through together. That's the real legacy of the blizzard of 1967. Not the records, not the numbers, but the way a city that had every reason to fall apart somehow held together. The way neighbors became family. The way strangers became friends. The way, for a few frozen days, Chicago remembered what mattered most. Not the cold, but the warmth. Were you there for the blizzard of 1967? Do you remember walking through those tunnels of snow, or digging out your car, or helping a stranger get home? Leave a comment below and share your story. Hit subscribe to keep these memories alive. If this video brought back something you have not thought about in years, share it with someone who was there too. Because some storms do not just change the weather, they change us. Until next time, hold those memories close. They are worth more than any amount of snow.